My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In 1975, I was in the U.S. Air Force stationed in Seoul, Korea. One morning, the thought crossed my mind that something was wrong with my mother back in New York. I called her and asked what was going on, and my sister, who had simultaneously picked up an extension phone, exclaimed, "How did he find out?" My mother was scheduled for major surgery the following day and never told me because she did not want me to get upset. My response to her was that I sensed that all would be fine, and it was. Separated by more than 6,800 miles, how was it possible that I knew what was transpiring? Was this a chance guess, or had something extrasensory taken place? If extrasensory, is this something that resides within each of us and that we all have the potential to tap, to be more than human, to be superhuman? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, award-winning filmmaker, futurist, and visionary Cory has been experiencing extrasensory and precognitive events since childhood and says that we all have this potential. Cory is the best-selling author of books on consciousness and energy medicine, topping the charts of consciousness science and mystical literature. After teaching energy medicine and consciousness work for more than a decade, she founded Omnia Media, an entertainment and media platform that tackles various thought-provoking topics on the human condition and the nature of reality. In addition to writing and producing, Caroline continues to lecture and coach internationally on various mind-over-matter subjects and appears regularly as a guest expert on supernatural phenomena at major conferences and television shows, including The Unexplained with William Shatner and history's popular series Ancient Aliens. Among several recent accomplishments, her film Among Us has won awards and nominations at various festivals around the world. Her website is omniumuniverse.com, and she joins us this week to share her experiences and discuss her just-released and groundbreaking film, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. It is my honor to welcome to Destination Unlimited, Cory. Good day, Caroline.
Hi, Victor. Thanks for having me.
So nice for you to join us and talk about your life experience and your films and all the wonderful work that you do. So according to your bio, you started experiencing subtle energy when you were 5 years old. What are your recollections of that experience?
Actually, it's a very, very clear memory. But first of all, I have to say that I love your story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
And it is just so common. People call it just intuition or just kind of ignore it. But for me, this is such an important topic, obviously. And it started when I was 5 years old. I remember it so clearly in my mind because what happened, it was Christmas Eve. And I was just kind of there in the living room, just looking at parents and adults just, dealing with the Christmas tree and gifts and things. And I just looked around and I was thinking, what does this have to do with love? What does this have to do with Jesus? I was just kind of like thinking that way. I wasn't really intending anything. And all of a sudden I see and sense and, just kind of hear these beings. They just kind of showed up. They were bodies of light, kind of angelic type, and they started communicating with me. And they said that we come kind of from the same place. We're connected, and it's almost like I am a part of them here in physical form, and they are on the other side of the veil. And we are in constant communication. And this is how humans communicate with spirit all the time. So that connection is actually never severed. And they showed me how we were communicating telepathically. It's like little codes, actually, that transfer from their consciousness into mine. I remember so clearly the message was, we're going to continue to communicate with you, but it's very important that you have to ask. You have to say, I want to communicate. I want this line of communication to stay open. So I had to kind of look at what my brain was doing. It's kind of like I made an effort, just imagine a 5-year-old, kid trying to kind of, as if I was squinting or something, making an effort to remember how I was communicating so that I could ask for it again in the future.
Now, you were only 5 years old, but obviously the thoughts that you had prior to the communication were thoughts that someone with a lot more wisdom, age, and experience would have. Do you think that carried over from a past lifetime?
Oh, definitely. Although, it's amazing now. I look at so many children. They are so in touch, they're in touch with spirit. They're in touch with, and what we call invisible friends, of course. It's spiritual connections. A lot of children are very, very clear. And I think I was one of those. It was, very obvious to me. It was the concept of love, and it just didn't make sense what the humans were doing when there was no connection to, because they were all like fighting. Where do we put the gifts? What do we do with this? What did you make for the, And so I was just focusing on that, and this is exactly when these beings showed up.
Were other members of your family also sensitive to subtle energy?
I think I had a great-grandmother who used to sense angels and things like that. But I'm not sure. I think the family that I have currently, most of them are gone by now, but they were quite sensitive, but I don't think they ever did anything with it. And so for me, that experience was so significant because I remembered those two very important things. One is that you still are connected to that lineage. The connection is never severed. The communication is never severed. But more importantly, you have to ask for it. You have to focus. You have to say, I want to keep that communication going. I want to bring that energy through. But another thing that happened for me, I thought like all children did that. I didn't think it was anything special. And so that's the reason why I didn't really share it. I didn't talk about it. I thought if all children can do this, then it's no big deal. But what intrigued me was how was my brain able to retrieve that information when all the adults around me had no clue? They could not see anything. They could not hear anything. And so that is the questioning that I started to have at a very young age, which led me to the field of consciousness. I wanted to understand the mechanics. What is the process that I went through spontaneously, obviously, that got me to tap into that information? And so that's how I got involved in consciousness science, research, energy medicine, and so on and so forth for 20 years.
I had many of the same experiences when I was a child, and I was always told that I had an overactive imagination and not to pay attention. What would you say to parents of children right now who are having similar experiences?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, your experience is very common because we want, supposedly, parents want the kids to be normal, to behave normally, which if there's nobody there, you're not supposed to be hearing or seeing or talking to anybody. And so you end up shutting down very, very, very important intuitive abilities. So because of this, I really think parents can just allow. They don't have to encourage. They don't have to go in either direction, but at least listen and allow so that the child does not shut down And these intuitive and psychic abilities are so important because it brings confidence. It brings a bigger picture, a bigger part of the story of who they are as they grow up.
Absolutely. It broadens their perspective and makes them more aware and asking questions about what exists in the world and what exists that we can, beyond the world that we can see.
Exactly. So I hope parents will be doing that.
And this experience as a child shaped your life. As you said, you got involved in this. How old were you when you started the actual practice of study?
Actually, I started much later. I was in my 30s, and so maybe earlier, not 30s. 30s more. It was more official, but throughout my life, I would spontaneously help people. So because I could see the subtle energy very clearly, and it's not the aura. People confuse that with aura. I would literally see their thoughts. I would see the root cause of a problem they have. And because of this, that accuracy, if you will, I could shift it or help them shift it. And so I started helping so many people informally, if you will. And eventually it turned into a whole methodology that I created in energy medicine, which I called the Omnia Method. Omnia meaning particle of a whole, meaning you're always part of something greater. You are a unit of consciousness that is part of a larger universal consciousness. And that's how really the healing happens.
And we're going to touch on Omnium when we get back in the second segment. My guest is Caroline Cory. We're talking about her life experience, all the work that she does, and her latest film, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. We'll be back with more of Caroline after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me, and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
A social distancing tip.
While the CDC urges you to avoid close contact, like hugging or shaking hands, there are other non-physical ways to say hello. Wave, wink, use sign language, salute, smile, give the peace sign, throw up an air high five, do jazz hands. Remember, stay a minimum of 6 feet or 2 arms length away from others and stay home if you can. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part because we're all #alone-together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Caroline Cory. We're talking about all of her work with the Omnium and also her new movie, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. So you briefly discussed the Omnian method of healing in the first segment. How did you discover it and how does it work?
So I realized that there's all kinds of energy healing methodologies out there. And the way I worked, again, spontaneously, is I realized that until you change the information that's inside the cell, the problem will remain the same, will be recurrent, it will come back. And so the idea was, for example, the cell knows how to behave. The DNA tells it to rotate at a certain frequency, to keep a certain chemistry, and so on and so forth. But then when we have negative thoughts and emotions for prolonged periods, you are then adding information. For example, the subconscious thoughts of I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I hate myself, I hate my body. All of these clusters of energy are actually going inside the cells, because once energy is created, thoughts are a form of energy. Once it's created, they don't just disappear. And so they actually go into the cells, and that's how a particular organ gets damaged or sick. And so because I see the subtle energy very clearly, I would focus, for example, on someone's liver, and I would see all of the information that were implanted, if you will, in there. So the belief system, the thoughts, the emotion inside the cells. And I realized that through intent and through other methodologies that I've created, light geometry, 0 point, there's all kinds of techniques, if you will. I was able to help the person take out this information, delete the information, if you will, from the cells. And the minute they did that, they healed. And the problem never came back. So I realized that is the way to address the root cause and in a permanent fashion. So when you're working on a cellular level, you're also working on a DNA level. It's the DNA is telling how for the cell how to behave. And so I realized that we're actually rewriting the DNA as well. And so I would lead the person into changing the information, deleting the information from the cells, and rewriting the DNA. And like I said, every single time, the condition would go away, the test results, the blood results, x-rays, whatever it is that we're working with, had validated the method that it worked. And so that's why the Omnia Method is basically reprogramming the DNA and the cellular functioning of the body.
When you say you saw the information, how did it present itself to you in the organ, for example, the liver? How does it present?
I actually see like a video, literally. I see the information as a story. So, for example, I'm looking at somebody tells me I have a liver issue or something. Or sometimes they tell me I have a problem in the liver, but actually I see that the root cause is not the liver. It's in the heart. It's a relationship issue. And so, because again, my intent is to look for the root cause, not to look for the symptoms alone. So basically, I'm guided to go to that organ. And then as I'm focusing on it, it's like a camera. I'm zooming in, if you will. I start to see a whole story. I see the person with the father having a fight, or with the husband. And then he's kind of like abusing, for example, physically or emotionally. I see her creating a belief system like I'm not good enough, I can't maintain a relationship, things like that. So literally a whole story unfolding. And so I lead the person in saying, when you were 26, you were in a relationship with this abusive person. And then, usually they'd be like, how did you know? It's, again, I'm speaking after 20 years of practice and, of having validation over and over and over. So you become more specific, more precise. And then as this person releases that story once and for all through intention, through, like I said, we guide them through the process. First of all, they feel something left their body and they feel lighter and the condition goes away. So that's how I see it. And then I can guide. I can also see what the person is doing. As I'm guiding them to say these things, I can see if they're resisting or if they're allowing. And so yesterday we were just playing this little game. I work with these scientists, actually, and we were talking about telepathy. And I didn't mean to, but they were saying, well, people can read people's thoughts. Can you read our thoughts? And I was seeing what each scientist, each person was going through, what they were thinking about. One of them, even though we were on a conference call, but he was thinking of that he was hungry and that he didn't have dinner, and his wife was in the kitchen. So I saw him kind of putting his hand on his stomach, I saw the wife in the kitchen. So as I saw this, I told him, "You're thinking that you're hungry and you haven't had dinner." I was like, "How did you know?" So it's kind of like that.
Does one have to believe in this system for it to work?
It helps, definitely. I mean, because if you don't believe, you have all kinds of negative blocks that come up. So, and the idea is, if you want to really experience these things, at least you have to be open. More and more people who experience it notice a difference. I have people who are in psychotherapy for 20 years and then nothing happens because it stays on an intellectual, psychological level. And, I'm actually trained as a psychologist, and that's the reason why I don't practice. I don't say too much that I'm a psychologist, because it stays very psychological. And I'm not putting that, field down or anything. I'm just saying, though, that in addition to the psychological level, you really need to go to the experiential, the energetic, the cellular level, and the consciousness part of you that created the problem.
Where may listeners find out more about the Omnium Method?
So the website is Omnium, OMNIUM, OmniumUniverse.com.
Now, your last film was entitled Among Us. I've been an experiencer contactee since early childhood and remember my experiences as pleasant and what I referred to as night school, because I always came back with new information that there was no other conscious source for. Many call these experiences abductions and remember them as frightening. What has your research and experience shown?
Yes, I would love to hear more about your experience. But for me, as I mentioned earlier, first of all, the contact experience is not just with extraterrestrials. To me, anything that's non-physical intelligence is a contact experience. So for me, it started out with light beings. Again, they didn't even have a form because it was just energy, basically. And so they didn't look anything like a material extraterrestrial. And that experience was extraordinary. I mean, it was so loving and beautiful. That's the reason why I was able to stay in this connection and ask for more. And so throughout my life, I had other experiences with other types of beings. And usually I've come in contact with beings from Sirius B, from the Pleiades, Arcturus, different star systems. I've seen some literally in physical form. Every single time it was a benevolent energy. It was very pleasant. However, I did have one very, very, very negative experience with two different types of beings. And so because of that, it gave me the idea that it's possible. Because when people would come to me and say that I had a contact experience and I'm traumatized, at the time I didn't relate to it until I had my own really negative experience with those beings. So I know it's possible. So to answer your question, it's like you, for me, it's most of the time it was beautiful and fantastic, and you would learn things, you would bring new information with you. It's extraordinary, but unfortunately, there are also those who have very negative experiences and abductions as well.
So these could be extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, angelic time travelers, or an amalgam of these.
Exactly. So the abductee experiences that I've had, I've worked with many because the energy healing methodology is also a sort of a form of regression, because you're going back to the root cause. And in this case, the root cause is that trauma, is that abduction experience. So I would work with individuals and we would go back to that time and we would see the story. And unfortunately, it was beings that are material, extraterrestrial beings in material form, and they are on a sort of a spaceship that are on a higher, in another spectrum of reality. That's why we don't see it with our naked eyes, but they're within our Earth space, actually. And so they're very close, actually. And so they are taken on those ships, and all kinds of things happen to them. And so that's the reason why they're traumatized. They come back with negative memories and they're afraid. So yeah, it's all kinds of things are happening on this planet, Victor.
My guest is the amazing Caroline Cory. We're going to be talking about her brand new film, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible, in our next segment. Caroline, tell our listeners, please, where they can find more information about you, the films, and all of your work.
Yes, for the consciousness and energy medicine work, they can go to omniumuniverse.com, and the film is superhumanfilm.com.
And we'll be back with more of Caroline after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Have you wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
During these times of worry, fear, and uncertainty, a calming and soothing voice may help you relax, clear your mind, and help you sleep. This is Victor the Voice Fuhrman, and for the first time, I'm offering my voice for your well-being. I will craft a personal guided meditation to suit your needs. My fees are very reasonable, and I can provide your personalized guided meditation quickly. For more information, please send an email to voice@victorthevoice.com. That's voice@victorthevoice.com. Blessings, my friend. Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Caroline Cory. We're going to be talking about her brand new movie, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. Caroline, Superhuman covers a number of truly groundbreaking studies of energy and consciousness with scientists, including physicists, mathematicians, doctors, and experts in many fields. I personally was delighted with the scientifically controlled demonstrations of truly superhuman abilities. How did you choose the areas featured and the experts?
Yeah, first of all, I think that there's a lot of information out there about how consciousness affects our reality, our physical body. So I wanted to go to the next level, not just as presented as a theory, but more practical and demonstrate scientifically how that could be possible. And so I searched for scientists, and I was already working with several scientists who are, like you said, in the field of physics to biochemistry to astrophysics. And we had been doing those types of experiments very successfully, demonstrating that consciousness was changing the chemistry of water or affecting an electronic device, an electrical device at close proximity, at a distance, or moving objects. And then I was thinking, wait, this needs to be shared with the world because this is working. And these are very prominent scientists. And I asked them, are you willing to be on camera and demonstrate and talk about it? And to be honest, all these folks were, they were no longer, I mean, it's not that they're not concerned with their reputation, but they know there's more to it. And they're so eager to kind of go to the next level themselves in the sense of sharing what else is missing in current science and mainstream science. So that's how I was able to invite all these prominent figures in science to contribute to the film. And I think we did a good job. What do you think?
You did a great job. You featured a quote in there from Nikola Tesla that says, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." That's a pretty profound quote.
Yeah, and I totally agree, because I think there are so many phenomena that are very much real that science cannot explain, because they are trying to explain non-physical events using physical laws, and it just doesn't work. It's a different set of rules, different set of laws. And so it takes a scientist that is willing to expand into the possibility that it's not just one thing. It's perhaps it's Newtonian laws and other laws, not just one linear way of thinking. And so I was very, very lucky and blessed. And there are more scientists out there. I'm still looking for more, actually, to work in this field, because even the physical laws, even the physical reality, the physical body, the current science tells us, well, we don't really understand the full functioning of the brain. We only know this much percent, or we only know 1% of the universe. So if they only know a small part of the physical world, then it's hard to say also that the physical laws that they all agree on are it, because there's more, the rest of the story, So
there's a part in the movie where you talk about the fact that science, and especially neuroscience, says that we only use about 10% of our brain, but you share that you can use 100% of your brain.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is going back to the methodologies that I've worked on and created. I realized that when I was working with a person, whether it's for healing or looking at their consciousness or their trauma or anything like that, my brain was not functioning in a linear fashion. And so it's as if my brain shifted from linear 10% to a whole experiential functioning. I felt like my whole brain was retrieving the information, so that the information that was coming to me, I could hear it, see it, sense it, understand it, even without any prior knowledge. It's as if my whole brain merged with that piece of information. This also happened when, going back to the contact experience, I would see certain beings that I had never heard of before, I've never seen before in my life. But then as this connection happens, this merging process, it's like you become that energy, you become it, so you know everything about it. All the senses, the 5 senses or more, merge together as one experience. And to me, this is how you shift from linear functioning 10% capacity to full brain capacity. I don't agree that first you use 10% and then 12% and then 15%. This is very linear thinking. You just shift from linear to multidimensional at once, and that is full brain capacity.
The film opens with an experiment with actress Rachel Brooks Smith on remote viewing. For listeners not familiar with remote viewing, what is it and how is it developed?
Remote viewing is basically the ability to perceive and retrieve information at a distance without any prior knowledge. And so the government used that technology, it's really humans doing that. You project your consciousness over distance in a specific location, and you retrieve the information that's there, what's there, who's there. And so, of course, on a government level, they tried to use that to try to spy on each other from country to country, especially Russia and the US at the time. But this phenomenon is very, very common, and actually you can easily learn how to remote view. And so that's why I wanted to introduce and invite random folks and guests to just try it out and see what happens. And it was amazing because these Rachel, for example, in this scene had never done anything like this before. And literally in 2 hours, we sat down for 2 hours, gave her some, instructions, guidelines, and we did that experiment. It's called an outbounder experiment. So myself and a crew member, we went to a remote location that she had never seen before, had no idea, no frame of reference, and she was able to pick up what I was doing at that location, what the location looks like, with the type of things that were there. For example, I was in a park, so it was a tree, there was a carousel, things like that remotely. And she did that after 2 hours of training. And
she got it down to an accuracy where she described that you had a cup of coffee.
Yes. And that, to me, that was the biggest validation, because I was not. So we were not. In fact, the instructor told us, do not stop, because psychologically your subconscious mind, Rachel, as she's trying to tune in, she needs to connect directly from her location directly into your location. So make sure you go straight to that location. And then, because we've been working all day. And so it was in the afternoon and we just passed the Starbucks coffee. And then I said, hey, you guys, I know we're not supposed to be doing this, but if there's no line, let's just run in real quick and get a cup. And of course, we went into the drive-thru and there was nobody there. So we just grabbed a drink and, went ahead to the location. So technically, this was not part of the consciousness stream, if you will, that Rachel was supposed to pick up. And it wasn't part of the program. So the fact that she picked it up, even though we didn't want anybody to know, is an indication that, oh my God, she was so accurate. To me, that was so funny and incredible.
It was hysterical. And the fact that she got the Starbucks brand too, that was really, really funny to me. So you describe in the movie that this experience is based on quantum waves. What are quantum waves and how do they work?
I think Dr. Rudy Shield of Harvard, he's an astrophysicist at Harvard Smithsonian. He's one of the best professors who can explain this so well. And so he says that the consciousness are made of waves. And so there are different types of waves. And the way the consciousness waves behave are spherical. And so they become coherent with other types of quantum waves, other types of electromagnetic waves, radio waves, we're surrounded by all kinds of waves. And so when you focus your intent in the case of remote viewing, for example, you are projecting your consciousness into a particular area. So it's as if you are making your consciousness waves that are spherical focus on a particular location, and and become coherent with the wave patterns of that location, if that makes sense. And that is the way you are retrieving information through these quantum waves. So it's as if you are creating a link, an energetic link that is made of waves between you and that location or that person. And that's how telepathy works.
There was a wonderful experiment with Dean Radin, the senior scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, in which he measured pupil dilation in anticipation of either a stressing or calming image projected on a screen. What did this show?
That's another fascinating experiment that we did. So what Dean was doing was showing very strong images that would trigger a sense of fear or a sense of, distress or a sense of calm and beauty. So very opposite emotions. And so the subject that we have, Rod, at the time, we just asked him to look at these images, and obviously as you look, he didn't know what to expect. So it was a spontaneous reaction. So when he saw an image that was very disturbing, for example, somebody burning in a fire or something like that, that would trigger an emotion. Or if it was a beautiful beach in Hawaii, very calming, that was another type of emotion. So what we noticed is that, and we had a device that would measure his pupil size, whether they dilated or restricted. And what happened was every single time before the image appeared, basically before he had a chance to react, his pupils would react. His pupils would dilate every single time, about, I think it was a couple of seconds, which is a lot in terms of reaction. His pupils would dilate before he saw the image. So then you ask the question, how is it possible that you actually have a physiological reaction, which is the pupil dilation, before the physical experience of seeing the image? So that's another way of validating that our consciousness, it's almost like comes before our physical body, if you will. So our consciousness is tapping into something, is tapping into the information stream even before we have a physiological reaction.
My guest is Caroline Cory. She's the producer, director, and creator of Superhuman, the invisible made visible. We'll be back with more of Caroline and more of Superhuman after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
The student asks the teacher, "How do I experience transformation?" The teacher replies, "When the student is ready to receive deeper answers, the student then asks, 'How do I know what deeper questions to ask?' And the teacher replies, "When the student decides to commit to a practice inviting transformation, level 2 questions will be revealed." Hi, I'm Tomas Garza, and as a teacher and host, I'm inviting listeners to enroll in the mastery of transformation by joining me on Decide to Transform, your bridge to level 2 answers, Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Caroline Cory. We're talking about her brand new film, Superhuman, the invisible made visible. Caroline, Dr. Glenn Ryan, a quantum biologist from Harvard Medical School, did an experiment in the movie with you about consciousness, using consciousness to adjust the pH or hydrogen level in water as well as the human body. How may this help us with our health?
Well, you go to the store and nowadays you see water with a higher pH, drink water that has 8+ pH alkaline levels and things like that because it's better for you. We know that an alkaline water is going to raise the pH in your system, because the viruses and bacteria cannot thrive in an alkaline environment, realistically alkaline. And so because of that, because it's really part of our daily life, I really wanted to demonstrate how that is possible. And so I did a few experiments with Glenn where we chose different kinds of water, then we decided which the perfect one that would help with the experiment. And it was long distance at the time, actually. I was able to change the pH of the water long distance several times repeatedly. And so I said, this is important. We need to address it in the film, because if people realize that they can literally change the pH of water with their consciousness, with their mind, it means that they can change it in the body, since the body is made of mostly water. And so then why would you need an external pill or food or water bottle if you can do it with your mind? So that is the purpose of this experiment. It's very, very practical. Having said that, of course, it takes some practice. It takes some understanding of how you're supposed to do it. And also the idea that, pH is going to change. Their saliva changes all the time as you go about your day. So, to be realistic, you have to kind of know that this is possible, but you need to keep shifting it as you go about your day. So that's why we did this experiment in the film. And another one, of course, that I've done many times with him before was the DNA. The DNA was fascinating because so this is a DNA sample taken from women placenta. And so what we said, let's go ahead and measure the electrical conductivity of the DNA sample, how electricity runs through the sample, if you will. And every single time I was able to shift the electrical conductivity, raise it up by a lot. In the film, in this take, I only raised it up by 100%, but other times, I would raise it up by 400% simply by looking at it, simply by intending for that to happen. And that's incredibly important because there are many studies that were done, but particularly one that shows that the electrical conductivity in the DNA sample is actually connected to self-healing. So the way the DNA strand can self-correct. Absolutely. And that's very, very significant. Think about this. Simply by focusing on your DNA, you're literally changing and electrical conductivity, meaning the energy that's running through it. Basically, you're increasing the energy just by focusing on it. To me, this is very significant.
And the healing potential of that is unlimited. Some of the wonderful things that could come as a result of that. Also, you did a beautiful demonstration on PK or psychokinesis, the ability to move objects with our consciousness, and you did it from 1,000 miles away.
Yes. A lot of the scientists that I work with are located in a different state. So several of these experiments started out a few years ago remotely. And so I kind of got used to doing things remotely. And you and I know there is no such a thing as time-space when you talk about consciousness, which is unbound by the physical laws. So you are everywhere all at once. And through entanglement, you can project your consciousness, be anywhere. And this is a perfect demonstration of that. So, we were able to move. The first time it was George Weissman, who was using the spiral piece of paper. And he told me, can you do it? I said, I've never done it before, long distance, an actual object. He said, just try. And so the first time it was only like 5 degrees, like very little rotation, but still 5 degrees is 5 degrees. So then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually I kind of, found the way to do that. And so I love that demonstration. It tells us that it's not even, you don't even have to be in the same physical space to affect not just the thought or, the consciousness of someone or something. You can literally move a physical object at a distance.
Which brings a really important point. How the energy field that we produce affects others. We're communicating right now voice to voice. What is our responsibility when communicating with energy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what this film demonstrates very clearly that everything is interconnected, and this is how. The film shows how and why. And so because of that, this means that we are always interacting with the physical world, with each other. Whether we know it or not, we're exchanging property, we're exchanging information, we're exchanging energy, we're sending energy out to them, they are sending energy into our field. And so this brings up, like you said, responsibility. Do I think about what I want to project into the world and onto others? Or just kind of go about the day, pretend that this never happened. So I hope people will understand the implications of those demonstrations.
Absolutely. For me, the most delightful part of Superhuman were the experiments where blindfolded children learned to see without using their eyes. Please share with our listeners about this amazing experiment.
Yes, and I think the viewers will have the same reaction as I did and many others do. When you first see this, you think it's a trick. There's no way. It's impossible. And maybe some people do it as a trick. I'm not sure. But I know because I've tried it myself. I've done it myself. I do it myself. And I've seen it really very closely. And I know exactly that these kids and adults, by the way, from all over the world are completely blindfolded, and they're able to read, they're able to ride a bike, they're able to play ping pong or what have you. And to demonstrate again in the film that this is not a fluke, that this is not some strange trick, we again brought science. And we showed scientifically that there was no light whatsoever in the mask, meaning if there's no light, then technically there's no vision, because that's how our visual system works. And the light reflects on the physical object, then you see. So if there's no light, technically you can't see. And so under laboratory conditions, we waited until this device showed that there's no light whatsoever inside the mask, and then the subject would start reading, would start, doing all kinds of stuff. Whatever was displayed in front of them, they could see very clearly,
including identifying colors.
Yes, it's incredible. And then what starts to happen once you develop this skill, if you will, because it's you work on it. I mean, you develop it. You start to see 360 degrees, because the point is you don't really see with your physical eyes. You see with your brain. And so this training is actually changing the way the brain operates. So it's not just relying on the visual system, but it's just operating as a perception vehicle. You can retrieve information from the front, from the side, from the back. It doesn't even matter. And so, we just did a class online, actually, with kids. After the second session, the kids were able to read completely blindfolded.
Does this hold promise for those who are blind or born blind?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Russian group, especially the Utah group, already are working with blind folks. Now, just to make sure I mention this, so, people are blind for different reasons. Sometimes it's just the visual system, but sometimes it's a brain damage, or a genetic thing. So depending on the actual reason for blindness, but most of the time you're able to perceive again using this methodology, which is very, very, very promising. Can you imagine that now blind folks can just begin to see, literally?
Wonderful, wonderful. One of the main conclusions of Superhuman is that consciousness is the most powerful technology in the world. How may we combine our energies so that it's only used for the benefit of humanity and ultimately for love?
I would love that to see that happen on planet Earth. I mean, that was also the idea of this film, and the point of this film is that if your consciousness can actually supersede what a machine does, because you can literally shut off a computer, you can shut off a system, you can interfere with physical object with your consciousness. It means that your consciousness supersedes the physical world. And so what are we afraid of? You know, because we talk about we're afraid of 5G, we're afraid of this, we're afraid of that, which I mean, of course, these things do present danger and stress on us, on the physical body, definitely. But the idea is that we forget that we are very powerful beings, and we are powerful because of our consciousness. But now, you know, your question is, can we use that for the good? Of course, that's the point, and that's what I'm praying for, and I'm hoping for. That when people see this, they first of all can use it to help themselves, to be empowered that, wait, maybe I don't need to just rush off and get a drug to heal maybe I can, let me just try it with my mind. Let me just see what happens, you know, since I've seen it happen on camera over and over with scientists. So maybe this is possible, you know, just take your power back. Believe in yourself, trust that you are not just your physical body, that your consciousness is extremely powerful if you just give it a chance to help you create your reality.
To open minds and open hearts and heal this world and bring love to the world.
Exactly. And then when you do that for yourself, then you do it with your family, then you do it with your community, and then you do it as a planet, as a humanity, as a whole. I mean, that is really my hope.
Her name is Caroline Cory. Her new film, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. Caroline, please tell our listeners one more time where they can see this film and find out more about you and your wonderful work.
Yes, for the energy medicine and consciousness work, people can go to omniamuniverse.com or simply carolinecory.com. It takes you to the same website. But for the film, the website is superhumanfilm.com.
Caroline, thank you so much for all of this wonderful work that you do and for sharing it with us with the hopes that humanity will benefit.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.